Ya, oke guys. Ini adalah tayangan ulang Asian Track Cycling Championship 2022. Dan ini adalah kelas scratch race di mana Indonesia menurunkan Terry Yudakusuma sebagai wakilnya. Berikut ini adalah daftar pembalap Indonesia yang mengikuti ajang Asian Track Cycling 2022 di India.
Cyclist number 34, Chang Hyun, Korea. Cyclist number 40.
With 60 laps, men elite scratch race. Yesterday we saw the performance of the Indian cyclist Harshveer Singh Sikho should be Indonesia, followed by Korea, then Singapore, then Uzbekistan, followed by Japan, and in the end, Iran. On the blue band, we want Kazakhstan, Malaysia, Turkmenistan, India, and United Arab Emirates. All the cyclists are checking in their position. Korean team cheering on. Miss Jang Han. With the whistle, we begin. Jang Han, praying from Team Korea, has started on the race.
Men elite scratch race. इस रेस में खिलाड़ियों को 15 किलोमीटर की दूरी तय करनी पड़ती है, अर्थात 60 लैप्स। भाग ले रही कंट्रीज हैं इंडोनेशिया, कोरिया, सिंगापुर, उज़्बेकिस्तान, जापान, ईरान, कजाकिस्तान, मलेशिया, तुर्कमेनिस्तान, इंडिया and United Arab Emirates. With the starting of the race, we can see Team Kazakhstan taking the lead, followed by Turkmenistan and Team Korea. Tough competition between Korea and Uzbekistan. Team Korea trying to take the lead. And we can see a manipulative game by Team Japan taking over, followed by Uzbekistan.
Korea's Jang Han is currently closing the lead for the Japanese cyclist. The Japanese cyclist Iya Hashimoto is maintaining a high speed. It seems like it is a competition between just Japan and Korea for the first place. Will it be Jang Han or will it be Iya Hashimoto? Korean team is in the audience cheering on Mr. Jang Han. All of the cyclists are pedaling at a very fast pace.
With Team Korea currently in the lead, followed by Team Japan, and being closely followed by Team Uzbekistan. Team Kazakhstan in the third place right now. With Team Korea currently in the lead. Competing for the second position, we have Team Iran. And we have Team UAE, Team India taking the lead. Harshveer Singh Sikho in the lead.
Currently we see the Indian cyclist Harshveer Singh Sikho taking the lead. It's a tough competition between India and Iran. Mr. Harshveer Singh Sikho is maintaining a very high speed from Team India. Japanese cyclist has closed in on the gap. Mr. Iya Hashimoto is going at a very high speed. The cyclist from UAE is also not caving in. It is always a very tough competition between Japan, Korea, Iran, UAE, India, Singapore, Indonesia, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan. Who will take home this victory? What will be the results? 10 laps of this race are already over. 50 laps remaining. The Japanese cyclist, Korean cyclist, the Kazakhstan cyclist, all following in a single file. Japan, Korea, Kazakhstan, Singapore, India, Iran, UAE, Indonesia, Uzbekistan. Currently, this is the order being maintained by the cyclists. At the first 4 positions, we had Japan, Korea, Kazakhstan, and Indonesia. And we see again Harshveer Singh Sikho from Team India closing in, gaining on the speed, fighting with Iran for the first position. But the Korean and the Japanese riders are not caving in. They are following close by. A very interesting match going on with currently Team India in the lead at first place. Mr. Harshveer Singh Sikho, rider number 85. He has all the countries following him in a single file, led by Team India, followed by Korea, Iran, UAE, Japan, Kazakhstan, Indonesia, Singapore, Uzbekistan, and Turkmenistan.
लीड लेते हुए हैं भारतीय खिलाड़ी मिस्टर हर्षवीर सिक्खो. Taking the second place, we have Team Korea, followed by Team Iran. Will this race end with Team India taking the gold? Mr. Harshveer Singh Sikho in the lead. Currently, Team Korea taking the second place, followed by Team Iran. And we have Uzbekistan trying to pace up, constantly on the lookout. Tough competition can be seen between UAE and Indonesia.
And with this, we see the Japanese cyclist gaining in. Mr. Iya Hashimoto has taken the lead for all the other cyclists. Korea is coming in at a long pace. There's a huge gap between Japan and Korea, but will the Korean cyclist close in on this gap? Kazakhstan is following at a short third. The Korea and Japan are having a tough competition for the lead. The Japanese cyclist is now slowing down, and all the other cyclists are maintaining and closing in on the gap taken by the Japanese cyclist. And with this, we see the Korean cyclist closed in and gained the gap and maintaining the lead with all the cyclists following him in a single file. The Uzbekistan cyclist is currently coming up over the blue band to enter into the single file created by all the cyclists. And we see the Uzbekistan cyclist is trying to increase the speed and gaining the lead. Mr. Botrijon Ismatov has gained a lot of lead. He is playing a mind game between all the cyclists. He is yet to close in on the gap, and Japan, UAE, India, Korea, Kazakhstan, Singapore, Indonesia, Iran are all trying to close in the gap created by the Uzbekistan cyclist, Mr. Botrijon. Japan, Iran, Korea are in currently a single file for second, third, and fourth position. They are all trying to close in on the gap created by the Uzbekistan cyclist, Mr. Botrijo. And it seems like the Uzbekistan cyclist is now slowing down, and all the other cyclists are covering the gap. Currently, we see the Singaporean cyclist increasing her speed. What would be the result? Which cyclist will have the lead in the last kilometer? Currently in a single file, we can see Japan, Iran, UAE, Korea, India, Kazakhstan, Indonesia, Uzbekistan, and Singapore.
With Team Japan in the lead, followed by Iran, UAE, Korea, Kazakhstan, Indonesia, India, Uzbekistan, followed by Team Singapore. Will this be another win for Team Japan, taking home the gold?
It's a very pretty picture to see all the cyclists cycling in a single file. And now they're all trying to overcome each other and come up in a bunch. The cyclists will again get into a single file. They all must follow the rules. There's a way to overtake one another. Currently, we see Uzbekistan, followed by Japan, Kazakhstan. The Iran and Indonesian rider are having a cutthroat competition. But we see the Korean rider seems like he is getting close to the blue band and will take the lead.
Men Elite Scratch Race, a race testing endurance, agility, and strength. Racers have to cover a distance of 15 kilometers, that is 60 laps. Currently, a cutthroat competition between all the racers, with Team Uzbekistan taking the lead, followed by Team Japan and Team Kazakhstan. It seems as if all the riders are trying to play a mind game, with Team Uzbekistan taking the lead. And we can see Team Japan has taken the lead, followed by Team Kazakhstan. Will Team Japan take the gold home again?
What would be the result for this long 15-kilometer race of 60 laps in which 31 laps remain? Only 30 laps remaining. The cyclists have covered half the distance already. With 7.5 kilometers done, 7.5 kilometers are left. 30 laps remaining. Will the cyclists be able to maintain their stamina, their endurance, their energy for a long race of 15 kilometers, or will they start tiring down? Last 7.5 kilometers will make a lot of change. Only 30 laps remaining. Half of the laps are done, and the cyclists are again coming in a single file. We see the Indian cyclist Harshveer Singh Sikho taking the lead, gaining in on a lot of gap, increasing his speed. He has overcome all the other riders and he goes above the blue band, still maintaining the lead, cycling at a very fast pace. Will he be able to maintain his stamina, his energy, his endurance, his valor on the tracks? Or will it be another win for India?
Up in the lead, we have Team Japan yet again, followed by Team Kazakhstan. A tough competition can be seen between three teams, Japan, Kazakhstan, and Korea. With this, we can see Team UAE taking the lead, followed by Team India, Mr. Harshveer Singh Sikho, followed by Team Kazakhstan in the third place. And we can see Team Korea taking the third place, a tough competition between India and UAE. A manipulative game. A tough competition for the first place between India and UAE, with both the teams being in the 24th lap. And we can see Team UAE taking the lead. Followed by Team Iran. Team UAE taking the lead. Will UAE take the medal home? Or will it be Japan, who was constantly in the lead in the previous laps? A tough competition between Korea, Uzbekistan, and India.
Let's see what would be the result. Currently, we can see Singapore in the lead. Will Japan, Iran, Korea, Kazakhstan, India, Uzbekistan, Indonesia, and UAE be able to close in on this gap? Or the Singaporean rider will be able to maintain the lead? With 21 laps on the go, we are seeing all the audience being very interested in the speed of all the cyclists, as this is going to be a really long race. This is men elite scratch race of 15 kilometers, 60 laps, out of which 40 laps are already done. That is 10 kilometers covered and last 5 kilometers remaining. What would be the result of the last 5 kilometers?
चल रही रेस मेन एलीट स्क्रैच रेस। इस प्रतियोगिता में खिलाड़ियों को 15 किलोमीटर की दूरी तय करनी पड़ती है, अर्थात 60 laps. And currently in the lead we can see Team Iran for a change, followed by Team India. Team India in the lead, having completed quite a few laps with 17 laps left. We have Team Japan yet again taking the lead, followed by Team Korea, Team Uzbekistan, and Team India. All the teams giving each other a tough competition. A game testing endurance, strength, agility. And we can see Team UAE taking a great lead, followed by Japan, Korea. An amazing competition between the teams, all giving their best to take the medal home. Ladies and gentlemen, men elite scratch race. With Team India currently in the lead, we have Team Korea following next. In the third place, we have Team Kazakhstan currently, with just 14 laps left. We have Team Korea taking the lead. And a manipulative play by Team Japan to take the lead, followed by Team India. All the teams showing impeccable endurance and strength. Team Japan, Korea, Kazakhstan, Iran, Singapore, Indonesia, India, UAE, and Uzbekistan. Currently in the lead is Team Japan, yet again. And we can see a tough competition between 3 countries in the overall race, which is Japan, Korea, and Uzbekistan. With Team Korea in the lead, we have only 11 laps left. An impeccable show of endurance, strength by all the riders. We have Team Uzbekistan in the lead, Team Korea following next. and Uzbekistan thereafter. All the races increasing their pace with just 10 laps left. With Team Korea in the lead, we have Team Kazakhstan following next, followed by Team Japan. A tough competition going on between Korea and Kazakhstan.
And with this, the cyclists are entering into their last 2 kilometers. Only 8 laps remaining. What would be the result of this scratch race? Will the Singaporean lead be maintained till the end? The Singaporean rider will have to keep his lead for a complete 2 kilometers. That's a very long distance to sprint for a cyclist. With 7 laps on the go, the Korean rider, the Uzbekistan rider, the United Arab Emirates rider are all closing in. The Japanese rider will start gaining his speed again, as we all know that, with 6 laps remaining. Will the Singaporean rider have its lead for the last kilometer also? Will this be a win for Singapore? With only 4 laps remaining, the cyclists have entered into their last kilometer. I repeat, this is the last kilometer. The Singaporean rider has a lead of more than half the track. More than 100 meters lead is with Singapore, which the Indian, the United Arab Emirates rider and the Korean rider are having a tough competition. It seems like gold has already taken by Singapore. Only 3 laps remaining. Will Japan or will it be Iran? Will it be Korea or will it be Kazakhstan? Who will take home silver? Who will take home bronze? With only 2 laps remaining, we have the last 500 meters. The last half kilometer of men elite scratch race. The bell is about to be rung for last 250 meters. All the cyclists are closing in on the gap. UAE rider is coming at a very high speed. Singaporean rider has lost its lead. This is a fight for gold again. And which rider crossed in first? It was a very close call for the finish line. Our commissioners are currently calculating and timing the result. No one could see what was the result. The naked eye cannot catch on such small difference. Whose tire crossed the finish line first? It was a very close call between Indonesia, Japan, United Arab Emirates, Korea, Uzbekistan, and India. All the riders did an ultimate show, a show of valor, determination by all the riders. The replay for crossing of the finish line can be seen. Whose tire was it? Was it Japan? Was it Indonesia? And who was it who came in at the second place? Was it Iran? Our eyes couldn't observe. Our minds couldn't calculate. Let's see what would be the result. We are awaiting the result for men elite scratch race of 15